Mr. Samuels, where did that go to after you met at the elevator?
Thank you very much, MC, and I would like to say thank you very much for inviting me to be part of the panel. Now, I think in the book, Rito relates 3 incidences, where the two of us interact. I mean, there was much more interaction, but the first one that you were quoting is that he was working in the Directorate for the Evaluation of Foreign Qualifications. And what I sometimes do, if I've got a space, I would walk to the cafe to buy myself some slop chips or something like that. Yeah. And then what I would do is to look and have a sense of how many people are, in the queue and how busy things are and so on. And also kind of interacting with, with people, on the ground. So that was the first interaction, and obviously, I mean, I saw him, doing the work and so on. And the fact that he didn't know that I was a CEO, I think it's good, so that it gives me a sense of what are people doing, as it were. The second interaction in the book is when I was in the lift, I only get the lift, go up and down and so on. And I think he recalls that he said to me, "Good morning," and he had this T-shirt on that said "whatever." So I said, "Whatever." That also reminds me that the book is a very serious book in a number of ways, but also Rito's got a way of saying a number of humorous things. So the whatever story is one of those ones. But I also think it's quite important that there are other moments also in the book that is also humorous, and I would like to just talk about 2 of those.
Yes, please. You're more than welcome.
Because I think the book talks about a lot of pain, suffering, loss, and struggle. But Rito describes something that is kind of interesting in the sense that he says, he describes following the unemployment son. Now, it is a very serious thing that we've got such a lot of unemployment in the country. And in particular, unemployment of young people.
Yeah.
But this idea, that you go and follow the unemployment son, it's making something very seriously, very, very interesting. And I must say, as we're driving through the townships, one sees many young men, that is sitting and following this unemployment son.
Yes.
Although this brings a smile to one's face, at the same time, it also, shows that this is a fact that really bedevils South Africa. And I think that comment on the issue about unemployment is something that, that is there. In fact, I want to say that Rito in the book deals with the triplets, in South Africa, the issue of unemployment, inequality, and poverty. And that it's described really vividly in the book, and how, he encounters that and what are the kinds of things that he's doing. The second humorous moment for me is when he describes his mouth wide open for minutes, as a kind of shock. Literally, I mean, when I see, and I mean, a lot of my work has been sitting in meetings and dealing with minutes, so that for me, I can literally see, his mouth hanging wide open, being unable to close it, ready for minutes. So I was saying for me, I mean, if I really reflect on the book, he also, I mean, as an individual, but also as a group, in fact, they're dealing with this whole question about inequality. So, so some of those headings, and the stories, how to start a revolution, how to decrease the gap between the salaries of workers and managers, how to defend jobs in the workplace, when, and in fact, and when unions are not doing what they're supposed to do, what are the kinds of things that you do to intervene and to find and to consider alternatives? The question about unemployment, I spoke again about, it's about how to defend jobs against overwhelming odds, in the workplace, because the power relationships are just so unequal. The unfair way in which workers are treated and dismissed. I mean, he at the moment, if one looks at the story that he tells, is about how he gets dismissed. Why? Because he challenges the view and says the only way that we must go is to dismiss workers. And so he stands up, for that. And again, looking at the detail of that, he says, in that first session where 72 people gets, is meant to be cut off, his name doesn't appear there. Other people's names appear there.
Yeah.
And how he then intervenes and so on in terms of that. It gets him into trouble.
Yeah.
But getting into trouble is not the issue here. It's about standing up for what is right. And he clearly, in terms of the demands and so on, and I didn't see the demands in the book, but I think it should be there.
Confidential.
Well, I'm not sure because it's article. Because I mean, if you look at the snippets of the newspaper articles, and so on, those demands are clear. So it also shows clearly the kind of analysis to show how management plans, in fact, are completely wrong. It's completely wrong. And so those, what is captured in those newspaper articles there shows that here you have a situation where management is going along a particular line. And then they themselves, when they get interviewed by journalists, shows that they couldn't do what they said they were going to do with the resources that they have and that they accepted. So I think, it's about standing up for what is right. The other point I want to make is the issue about poverty. So how to struggle, how to hustle, and how to survive during very challenging times. How to turn your gifts into profit. Or put differently, how to be an entrepreneur during very, very difficult times. The other point I really just want to make is that although MC have read, some wonderful quotes and so on, for me the best quote in the book is Rito reflecting on his reflecting on himself, and he says, he is not yet a success story. He's not yet the complete article.
Yeah.
So I think in a way the book reflects that, because if one wants to be really critical and so on, and I mean it's one of the things that I normally add, is you can say that look, there can be quite a lot of things that one can say more in the book to make things a bit clearer and so on. But in his own words, he says, I am a work in progress. My view of life is that we fall and we rise again. We make mistakes and we learn from them and we become the best that we can, or the best of us that we can. Most importantly, it is always to know that life is more of a work in progress, and that we ought to keep adapting to the curveballs thrown at us and make the best of what we have in what we have. I think for me, that's the most fantastic quote in my book. And it shows a self-awareness about where he is And what are the kinds of stuff that still needs to happen? You know, because I don't think anyone is a complete and a perfect being. There are those things that one comes up. Lastly, MC, I want to just say that clearly Blurry is a book demonstrating that a village or community raises a person. You know, you never do things by yourself. A single person cannot do these things. I would then say we should support Rito in reading the book and bringing these different perspectives to it, and to enrich this, you know, and to enrich the book. Telling the story in this book and helping him to define the story and the ideas in the book, and to buy, you know, to both you and encourage others to buy the book.
Yeah.
I think we must allow Rito and clearly Blurry also to encourage us and to inspire us to write our own story. Because there are many stories that we can tell. We need to write our own books. We need to tell our own stories to our children, to our families, to the community, and to the world. So I would like to say congratulations. An inspirational work in progress for all of us.
Yeah.
So well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You have covered so many stuff that I was supposed to. That's why I'm saying that it's good to have intelligent people. You know, those who can, as an MC, you know, like there are certain spaces where like, you wanna work so hard. Others you can see now like, they're doing the job for me. They're like, you know, so thank you so much. Mr. Seseni, now coming to you. You have picked up his work and you're doing, as UJ, you are doing work with them, with the students. And it, as we said, the vision is big. It's not just, this doesn't just end with us. If UJ can pick that up and support him, that speaks volumes on its own. And now, what did you see in him that made you to take his work and run with it and mentor him? Why is this work of clearly Blurry so important that you take it and run with it so that you can change communities? Why specifically this one? There's so many people who are writing books around, but why this gentleman?
All right, congratulations. The book is really, it's a nice read.
Yeah, it's a nice read.
I'm a very difficult person to please.
Yes.
Let me be honest with you. I'm not easily convinced. I'm not easily, it's not that easy to move me, especially when it comes to products or services, because I understand that I buy and I work so hard for my money. So what you give me must be on point, because I don't sleep at night for that. You know,
Yeah.
so I can't sleep, you know, I can't decide not to sleep for you to give me mediocre work. And this is what I always emphasize in class, in my students, that don't give us mediocre work. We will not accept. So I still remember vividly when I first met him. It was back in 2016. I saw his work, was my mutual friend on Facebook. He was busy with his business, the printing, and I wanted a mark. And when I saw he posted it, and I was like, no, this looks on point. And then I bought, and I went to, and then he said, you must come to, you know, to come and collect. And I went. When I saw the product, I was impressed. Like I said earlier, I'm not an easy person to please because of my background. I did masters in quality. So I look at so many things. When you give me something, I look like, but you can still do better. But with his work, you know, I fell in love with it. And because of his, you know, very good post-service, post-purchase service. And then we started engaging from me. Even though I wasn't buying anymore, but he was still asking me about the mark. I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And then from there, you know, following his work, what he was doing, we decided to invite him over to class. You know, why do you do that? Well, here at the university, we decided to take a different approach of we don't want just to teach just international stuff on our students. We must also have, the local stuff, and then, but we had to think like, who can we bring on board? Because you can't just bring anyone. You need very good people who have very interesting stories to share with your students. So that's where then I was like, no, he has an interesting story. I'm featuring him in. I'm inviting him over to be a guest lecturer in my class, which he did exceptionally well. My students were quite impressed. And what we did after that, what we did that time and was immediately after that, we even wrote a case study, was part of the students' assessment. And he came back again, with students again, I think it was 2-3 weeks ago. Yeah. Where he presented again. The students were quite impressed with his work. But what stands out, because it's easy, you can invite someone to come over today, and then they talk, and then be like, oh, okay, no, good. You did your part, that's amazing. But with him, I think it's summed up by the book, because it talks about, him being a leader, him being, a servant to people. When it comes to class, he doesn't just come, ill-prepared. You see that he takes this serious, although we don't even pay him for that because it's part of community engagement, but he takes it extremely serious, because you see that he wants to impact other people. I think it's because of what my colleague here spoke about, that, he's worried about the issues of inequality, he's worried about issues of poverty, he's worried about issues of unemployment. And him coming, it's also being part of, people who are solving that as a solution. So that's why we decided to work with him. And, just to add, last when he was at the institution, I had a meeting with my students. So we have the business clinic where our students are the ones who are providing consulting services to existing businesses. So I was supposed to be in that meeting. He was still around, but I wanted to attend to him again, but also attend the other meeting. I was like, can you come to the meeting? He was like, no, sure, no problem. And when he joined the meeting, he was like, no, you are more than welcome to contribute. But you could see that he was excited and he did contribute because he is more concerned about serving people, and which is what stood out for me. And thank you for that.
So when we see that it's not speaking for himself now. When people are speaking for you, that's when you know. And then continue doing the work, sir. Before we continue taking the last set of the panel, like the questions that I will pose, please prepare questions. We're gonna have a Q&A. You feel free to pose any question that you would like. Also to you, those who are online, who are streaming, you are more than welcome. We'll be directing the questions to them too. So coming back to you now, now you did a lot of talking. Let's, I don't know, you are there to answer now. Lawyer, you're feeling pressure now, like what is it going to ask me now? Don't know, I'm coming. Now, back to you, Mr. Ngulang. Because time is no longer on our side too. Here we can see. Just to sum it up, because COVID came and then it shifted everything. It shook everyone. That's why the work that you're doing with the union, the battle that the troublemaking and stuff, it was because of COVID. And now the workspace has shifted all over the globe. There's so many things that are happening right now. People have lost their jobs, others have passed on, like so many breadwinners. There's been a loss of income in so many homes. And now it's important for us, that's why he wrote mainly this book, to drive the point that you need to embrace the gift that you have and turn it into a profit. So now, talking about that, as a businessman, how can people do, how can someone like find their gift and turn it to profit, and mainly to also help others out there? Because now once you're a leader, it's no longer about yourself, and just to spread as people as they turn into leadership by default.
Thank you, MC. Look, I must let me just confess, I've got a confession. I said this troublemaker thing, I don't know about. Actually, I'm just refusing now. Because he's sitting on the other side. I'm the employer. I employ quite a number of people, over 500 people, at times when we are busy and very busy. So you can imagine, this guy is fighting me. So how do we expect to fail? To really get into that space where we're troublemakers? I don't like troublemakers. I'm joking. But some jokes are true. Employers don't really like unionists. Because we're there for profit. That's the truth about business, unfortunately. Coming back to you, say, look, in our cancer group, we've got a very strange policy. My approach is very different. Almost everyone in the company, especially at the senior and executive level, they're actually encouraged to have their own businesses while working for a kids. As a matter of fact, in my top 7 in the company, they all have businesses that I support, but they are in the payroll of the company. Most companies or even government, they fire you because you're running your own business. But at Akensa, we encourage you to have your own business. That's because while still in corporate, I suffered a lot. In me, I've always been in business. But of course, the environment didn't allow me to operate my business while working for them, right? So then I realized that, look, we're not helping much. And I'm not saying government must adopt what Akensa is doing, but they can if they so wish, of course. And I think it will help the country as well. Mr. Sisson can actually maybe advise on that. So I've realized that by doing that, these guys are able to employ 1 or 2 people. But at the very same time, it does not give pressure to Akensa to give you a salary increase. Because I I've never in my life, while working, go to the employer and say, I'm looking for a salary increase. It has never happened. Although somehow what they were giving me on average for the past 7 years of my working before I retired in 2015, I was getting increases almost twice a year from 3 different big corporate. I work for your Alexander Forbes, your Edcon, and some audit firms. I've never. Why? I was able to make double my salary for that 7 years by side jobs, employing other people out there who are doing they were my runners, of course, because I couldn't run during the day. I was operating at night. But then I realized that I was making a difference. But at the very same time, I never put pressure on my employers to say, I want more, I want more, I want more. So for me, I think it's very key. After COVID and everything, if we can allow our employees or people to learn that skill, so that they can be able to survive. They don't live with fear of the unknown. And who knows, maybe they are my boss. Look, I'm sitting next to him here. Honestly, I didn't know 15 years ago that I would be sitting next to an author. And I know I would have taken this guy for lunch every day. As a matter of fact, anyone that is sitting next to right now, do yourself a favor and take them out for lunch tomorrow, because that might be your next boss. Yes, my next boss. Yeah. It's great.
Such uncles. You won't even believe. We met. No, he's my uncle too. We only met 2 months ago with Mr. Nkuna. You won't even believe. But now things are like this. And now, like, we really appreciate you for that, sir, because you for empowerment. You never, even without a doubt, you just like plug you in and the plug, and then off you go. And that's how business goes. Like I'm saying this because now, like, there's so many things that are happening in the business space. Like, I mean, in the workspace and stuff. Like business, it's not this thing that you think like, hey, it's impossible. It's impossible. It just needs people, you know. And whenever you don't know who you're sitting next to, and yeah, other people who can plug you to, plug them too. If there are others. So now, I'll come back to you. You've touched on so many things. You've touched on so many things, and like another question I wanted to ask you, you've touched it too, but there's this important one that we can't bypass, right? You were able to shoot up to SACA, to be on top. I don't know if you were there fully or you were coming from another institution and stuff, but however, the experience, he speaks highly of you. Of course, he's a leader. If you can please him, then, you know, well trusted. It means the organization was well run. You were on the floor on the organization, you were interacting with people within the organization. There are certain people who are in corporate right now or who are in government institutions. Mainly, unfortunately, within the government institutions, we know mediocre, it's the order of the day. You know, there are certain things that are done not up to standard. It's not the same as the private, because the boss, like when you're owning a company, you want things to move faster. You were within the parastatal, you were able to shift it properly. How can you advise someone who's working in corporate or also, you know, within the parastatals or the government, who is down somewhere there on the floor as from an admin, from an entry point? How can they elevate to the levels where you are? Because now we've seen, now the work has to go right now after COVID, and things just like there has to be productivity in a way. What can you advise anyone in the room how to get on top?
Well, let me say this, MC, that I worked at SAPA for 22 years.
Yeah.
So in other words, you know, if people would characterize that, they would say, this person is a journeyman. You know? So,
yes.
So I started as a director and I worked for 7 years. I then became the deputy CEO, or deputy executive officer, then worked for 8 years. And then, you know, then became the CEO and worked for another 8 years. So in other words, it's not, it wasn't the thing that, you know, you suddenly just get there. On the way also, there are lots of disappointments. So for example, I applied for the position as a deputy executive officer. No, I didn't apply. I mean, in fact, as I was reading through the advert, it was clear that this job wasn't written for me. It was very clear. So I thought to myself, well, look, I actually need to find something else for me and so on. So, however, the CEO and the chairperson of the board had a meeting with me, and they said, no, we don't want you to go, and all of that kind of stuff. And then I thought a little bit about it and say, well, you know, in life, there are ups and downs, and they were talking about, say, look, these are the areas that you need to develop in and so on. And I took that very seriously. I often think that, you know, when people give negative feedback to you, what people then think is that, you know, you don't want them to succeed and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a very difficult conversation. But the point for me is that you need to be open to that conversation, because if you're not open to that, how would you improve yourself? So that conversation was one of the key things for me. You know, I then stayed on and I improved the areas that they pointed out to me that I needed to work on. You know, so that really helped. So for me, you know, and there was a book that really, you know, kind of played a key role. If I'm thinking about it, the book was was saying to me very often what happens is that people are in a job, but they're not focusing on their job. They're thinking about the next one.
Yes.
You know, so the best job, in fact, that you've got is the one that's in front of you.
Yeah.
Was the kind of thing, the kind of lesson there. So, so I do think that the kind of advice must be when you start, open yourself up, you know, and invite people to say, where are the areas that you should improve?
Yes.
And then invest in yourself and really go out, improve those things and so on. And don't just listen to yourself, because very often people, you say, I'm good at this, I'm good at that, and so on. It is useful to get the kind of view from others to say, are you really good at that? You know, how can you improve it? So for me, that would be the kind of key lesson, that I would like to share with the people.
Oh, thank you so much. You have said a mouthful, because said like that there are different people in the workspace. There are those who are building their careers, and there are those who are there for their jobs. Those who are building their careers, they take time, they play for the long haul. And that's what you have said yourself. You are that person, and we thank you so much for that wisdom. Mr. Sesemi, we are here. We know UJ is big also on tech, on technology, on fourth industrial revolution. We've seen with COVID what has happened. Now, it's needed more than ever for people to jump onto it very quickly. But then not so many people understand what fourth industrial revolution is, and the type of work that we do, because he said like you are big on that. And even when you read your stuff, you are big on the technology side. How does just a mere person, just an average person who's not tech savvy or stuff, embrace it quickly to